Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a couple of quick and easy cards. Yeah, quick and easy. Using Distress Mica stains, which if you've been watching my more recent videos, I've been using quite heavily because they're fun. They're fun. So this video is for this week's color throwdown challenge. For those that aren't aware, the color throwdown challenge is open to everyone. It's just for fun. There's a new one every Wednesday. And on the color throwdown blog, all the info's in the sidebar. I will have a link to the challenge in my blog post, which is linked below the video. And yeah, there'll be other inspiration, and you can also check out what other people have created because they'll have added their takes on the challenge. And yeah, it's just for fun. And it got me thinking, and I was like, they could be very Halloween colors, and instead I went just fall with it. So if you keep watching, I will show you guys how I made these cards. Okay, so my first step was to emboss my watercolor paper, and I'm using Distress watercolor paper, and I have my flour sack cloth. This just keeps me from getting water like all over my die cut machine, etc. Lightly mist the panels with water. This just helps soften the fibers a bit. You get a deeper, better embossed impression. And then I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Wheat Stems 3D embossing folder. And for me and my machine and the Simon Says 3D embossing folders, I have my Platinum 6 machine with the original platform and 2 metal shims. That just works like chef's kiss perfection to get a perfect embossed image. So ran that through, tilted back and forth. I'm loving it. I am loving all these embossing folders and all the different patterns and all the different things. They're just fun. So I did 2 because like I tend to do, if I'm able to do more than 1, why not? So emboss these first. Then I'm going to add Shimmer, and I'm going to use Distress Mica stains because they're fun as well. And I am finding for me, these work like the best on Distress watercolor paper, which makes sense. They're made by the same brand. You know, they're formulated to work together. Because I do get asked that a lot. Like, do you seal them? I have issues with the shimmer coming off. Honestly, that rarely happens unless I'm layering a ton of things. Like, especially if I'm spraying on top of something I've like done ink blending, etc. A lot of times, if you've got too much on your cardstock, there's just nowhere for the shimmer to go. However, you guys see me doing this. I laid the panel in my splat box. I've shaken them up. I'll have links to the specific colors, but it was Harvest Moon, Jack-o'-lantern, and Wicked Elixir. And I'm spraying a decent amount. You know, like I'm completely covering these backgrounds. This shimmer doesn't come off. You'll see me handle these panels throughout this whole video, and then at the very end, I will literally rub my fingers on the background just to show. And I didn't seal this. Like I spray it and I let it dry. That's it. However, if you want to seal yours, you totally can. There are different spray sealants out there. I've heard microglaze might work. I've honestly never bothered trying it because I just don't feel a need. Especially when you see like it doesn't come off. But if you're, experimenting with different types of cardstock or watercolor papers, or you're adding this on top of all kinds of other things and you just find that the shimmer keeps coming off, 1, try adding a little less, and then 2, if you need to, add a sealant. It could probably totally work for you. So I sprayed the colors on, and like everything, while this is wet, it just looks kind of like a hot mess. The magic with these is once they dry, then that kind of works with all shimmery type products. They always kind of look a little, when everything's still wet, and then it dries and it's like magic. And then the next step is I lightly mist the back of these because I don't want to create like water spots or anything on the front. And I'm going to run these through with the embossing folder again. They just kind of pop in place, which is oddly satisfying. You just kind of press it into the folder and it just, clicks in basically. And then I run it through again. And because you lose a little bit of the definition when you're using sprays and things like that. So doing this a second time, adding that bit of water to the back, it just emphasizes the 3D embossed pattern, and I think it's worth the extra, 2 minutes it took me to do this. So I re-embossed it, and then after I did that, I let these dry again because I'd sprayed the back, so they were a little bit wet, and let them dry. And then I'm going to sew around the perimeter of these. I've been showing my little sewing machine more and more in the last couple months. Yeah, no special needle needed, no special thread needed. This is just a standard little Janome sewing machine. Your typical thread, typical needle. The only thing to always, of course, keep in mind is if you want to sew on cardstock, it's that same concept as using your good fabric scissors on paper. They'll dull. I think a lot of us know that one. Like having a mother very, very angry at us as children for cutting up construction paper with their good sewing scissors. Anyway, same sort of concept with sewing on cards. It will dull your needle. Am I worried about it? No. Needles are pretty cheap and I can replace it at some point. I don't know how long it'll take before I feel the need to do that, because as of right now, I'm only planning on sewing on cards. I don't sew on fabric. I'm not good at it. But yeah, that's all the tips and tricks I have. Because literally, I just stick it in and I start sewing. And I like to go around twice and purposely, move my cardstock around a bit so I get sort of a wavy line. Because that's actually the hardest, is keeping a straight line. And the other thing to note too is sewing on cardstock, you'll get more little dust, because the littlest paper fibers, that sort of thing, can build up on your machine. So I'm only saying all this because if those that really sew with fabric, your quilting, etc. Yeah, using your good machine for that, it's just something to always, of course, keep in mind. But you could have a dedicated needle for cardstock, etc. But I find I just use a really, really soft, fluffy brush. And I just did it before I started sewing this. I just kind of dusted around where, the needle and the mechanism is, just to remove any of those little bits. Plus, I work in my garage and things just get dusty in here regardless. So it is what it is. But anywho, I'd switched to orange thread and just sewed around the perimeter. I'm really just loving sewing on my cards again. I used to do this years and years and years ago, and stopped doing it for a really long time, and then decided to get this little machine and start doing it again. And I just love the texture it adds and just that extra, very handmade element. And yeah, it's fun. And yeah, my machine is very cute too. It's a Janome, I think it's called a New Home machine, and it comes in 3 different colors. And of course I got the aqua green sort of color. Anywho, after I sewed around the perimeter, for these cards, I just pulled the threads to the back. I just used my little die pick, pulled them to the back, and taped them down. It just depends on my mood, how I want to go about it. If I'm going for a more mixed media, sort of messier look, that sort of thing, I leave the threads hanging out because I like that look too, because it just gives that little extra something. And then for something like this, it's no, I'm just going to pull the threads to the back, keep everything a little more contained. But then I still wanted texture, more texture. And another thing I've been doing a lot lately, because I just right back into it, revisiting the oldie but goodie techniques as well, is using my little Tim Holtz distressor / thread cutter tool. I've also shown in other videos because I had to reorder this one because I lost my original one because, it went for years. I thought for sure. Usually when you order a new tool, the old one makes its appearance. Shockingly, this one hasn't. I'll find it in the most random place, I'm sure, in 5 years or something. But anyway, this little tool is great. I've shown using even just your fingernails, which I don't recommend because it's kind of hard on your fingernails. But I've also shown using just scissors to rough up your cardstock. This little tool is obviously just the most convenient and easy. And again, I find it one of those randomly satisfying things. Because it's you just rough up the cardstock. You make a bit of a mess and it just creates, again, that texture, and I love it. So I did all of that, set those aside, and then I grabbed some scraps of Simon Says Stamps green leaf cardstock, and I used the CZ Design Scripty Thanks wafer die. This die has the word and the outline. So I die cut the word from the green cardstock, and I'm stacking those together with craft tacky glue. And for this, because this is a more like detailed sentiment, I have my little bottle, my little Gina K Precision bottle that I have filled with craft tacky glue, just so I can get little, you know, little fine lines, and stack those layers together. And then the outlines I die cut from Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, but I wasn't sure if I was going to use the outlines, and in the end I didn't. So those I'm actually just going to put back in the packaging next time I go to use it. I'll already have some outlines cut out. So for my little companion sentiments, I pulled out another oldie but goodie set. This is the Thanks sentiment strips. These came out years ago. And cut off just a couple sentiments I wanted to add to it. So there was like the little sentiment strips in the pack that said thanks for your support. So I just cut out the for your support sentiment part of it with my trimmer, and then I ink blended Simon's Fairway Positively Saturated ink over them. And then my card bases are also Neenah Desert Storm cardstock. So I just cut a sheet in half, and then I'm scoring it at 5.5. So these will be top folding A2 size note cards. So 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. So I scored them, impressed the folds, and then on the insides, another oldie but goodie favorite that I've shown in a bajillion videos is the thank you text background stamp. So pulled that out, and I'm inking that up with Simon's Latte Positively Saturated ink. And I put just a piece of Post-it tape at the score line on the inside of the cards so that it doesn't stamp past the little score line. And then I just press the inside of the card onto that background stamp. And I'll repeat the process for the second one. And this will dry back a little bit too. So it's going to be very faint, you know, but it's just got those thank you text. Just to give the inside a little something, something. Because you guys know, the insides of my cards, they got to have something. Like, the card's not done till there's something. Whether it just be just a sentiment strip or the stamping, or when I go all out and add an entire scene to the inside of my cards. It just depends on my mood. So got the inside stamped. And then I'm going to adhere these card fronts to the card bases, and I'm just going to use craft tacky glue. Another option would be to rough up the edges, adhere, just use a bit of adhesive in the very, very middle, and then you could sew around, like sew through both layers, like literally sew the card front to the card base. I thought about that, but one, I was like, if I did that, knowing me, I'd end up messing it up, you know, and I've already been in the habit of just sewing the card front itself. Also, though, you would have the threads and, you know, the back of the sewing on the inside of the card, which personally wouldn't bother me in the least. But yeah, there are options. So haven't done it. I just prefer just sewing the panel individually and then just adhering it. And the craft tacky glue holds everything down and we're good to go. So I adhered the card fronts to the card base. And then, yeah, I decided with the sentiment not to use the outline. Just adhered it directly to the card base, adhered the little sentiment strip to the card base, and then I couldn't resist another oldie but goodie favorite, gold vellum. I've shown this in many videos. It's been a while since I've shown it in a video, but this one's Tonic. I had one like years and years ago that I loved, and it was discontinued, and it was a favorite. And then Tonic released gold vellum, and it's basically the same, and I love it, especially with this little wafer die that I've used in 5 bajillion videos. The Flickering Butterflies little wafer die set. So I die cut the gold vellum with that, and then I just adhere them with tiny little dabs of glue. With, like I always say with vellum, adhesive does show through vellum. However, these little butterflies are so tiny, I don't care. You could cover up the little centers where the dotted glue is with like a little gem. That would look really cute too. I don't think I've ever bothered to do this in the dozens upon dozens of times I've shown this little die set and adhered these little butterflies to cards. I just don't bother, but you totally could, and it would look really cute. But I just add a tiny little dab of glue, press them down just on the centers so the wings are popped up. So it just, again, gives it that little extra bit of dimension. And then with these, the leftover little butterflies, I adhered to the insides of the cards, because why not? It just gives it that little extra something. So added those little dabs of glue. Once I've got those adhered into place, that finishes off both of these cards. So at the end here, I'm going to show you guys, try to show the sparkle. It's hard. It's hard to show the sparkle on camera. Even with my flashlight, it's like, it just wants to show like the shine, but there's also like sparkle with these mica sprays. And then, yeah, I'll rub my fingers right on it and you guys will see like none of it is coming off. It's good to go. And I love it. And I love how the spray is also kind of pooled around the 3D embossing. That's why I embossed first and then sprayed. You could totally spray everything and then emboss. See what happens. You never know. It's always fun to see. You might discover something new that looks really cool. So, yeah, shimmer doesn't come off. That's fabulous. I love it. And like always, I will have a link below the video, like I mentioned in the intro, to my blog post. In the blog post, I'll have a link to the color throwdown challenge. I'll have picture links to all the supplies I used, the photos of the cards, etc. That will be in the description box below, along with links to all the supplies I used. So you guys can check that out below if you were interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, and for thumbs upping and commenting and letting the robot overlords know that you guys like what you're seeing. Subscribe if you haven't. I would love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.